Can you, delinquents, tell me exactly what you were doing in the hallways?
Delinquents?
Hey, Ollie, been a while.
I asked a question. I'm demanding an answer, Joey.
I don't know. What's there to explain? We were testing out the wildly anticipated Joey kissing booth.
Which we tested to see if it was viable for the school festival.
Well, seeing as you both are here in the student council's office because a number of students cried to me that some perverted delinquents are harassing them, I'd say your answer is right in front of you.
Yeah, looks like I messed up by suggesting we do it on floor 2.
Yeah, we probably would have gotten better results if we did this with the first years instead.
But Jesus Christ, no! Look, cat girl, I don't know you, so I'm not expecting anything from you, but come on, Joey, have some tact for once in your life.
Girl?
Come on, Ollie.
Oliver?
Oliver? I just want to contribute to the school in a meaningful way, you know? That's not too different from what you're doing by being the student council president, right?
You know, how about you do your peers a favor and contribute to the school in a meaningful way? If you can't figure out how to do that, why don't you ask your little sister? She is the student council vice president, after all. When she's in here with me, it's surely not because of some dumb stunts like this.
What's your point?
Be more like her and less like... her.
Hey!
Sure.
This would be worth a detention for both of you, but since Joey is my friend, and this is the girl's first offense as far as I know, I'm going to give you a lighter punishment. Now, the question is, what exactly should I make you... yeah, good idea. Make an essay on... whatever that thing that just spawned out of nowhere is. I'm busy, so I don't have time to give instructions. Go figure it out.
Well, convenience be damned. This is my 9th offense. 10th if you count that time I transformed in my gym class, but we don't talk about that. Anyways, what do you say, Joey? I'm still waiting to see you do a commentary. Maybe a cup would help you stretch those commentary legs of yours.
Hey, I'm gonna have to go. Mom wanted me home early today to help make dinner. You don't mind taking care of the essay for both of us, right?
I do, but I owe you one, so I guess I won't complain.
Alright, gotta go.
Wonder what that was about. Alright, whatever. Might as well get this one out of the way. One student council mandated commentary coming up. Okay, so I'm just gonna assume you all know what CinemaSins is today because I'm tired of explaining it. I've done 2 videos on the subject of CinemaSins parodies already, so okay, fine, I'll explain. They go through movies, nitpick and analyze stuff from the movie and tally them up and call them sins, yada yada. There's a lot of YouTubers who do parodies of their content, with the important one here being Chari5, who's done these types of videos for notably Sonic video games. Now, Chari5 had been the target of his own series of CinemaSins parodies from one Tony Sonic, who made several videos on Chari5 criticizing his videos. Tony Sonic's video on Chari5 Sonic Adventure 1 video in particular caught the eyes of today's subject, Exfredds, who went on to release his own CinemaSins parody of Tony Sonic's CinemaSins parody on Chari5 CinemaSins parody. So, one might assume I'm making my own CinemaSins parody on this CinemaSins parody that's on Tony Sonic's CinemaSins parody on Chari5 CinemaSins parody. Well, you'd be incorrect. I am not making a CinemaSins parody on that CinemaSins parody on Tony Sonic's CinemaSins parody on Chari5 CinemaSins parody because I really hate that this is a sentence I feel the need to say. Those who followed my channel may have noticed that I myself have covered Tony Sonic's Sonic Adventure 1 video myself. Interesting fun fact, Exfredds acknowledges me as the inspiration for this video. As such, I apologize to Exfredds and the audience. Anyways, I'm out of witty things to say for now, so let's just begin or something.
I'm about to bomb this whole motherfucking plane.
Before anyone asks, yes, I am aware that Sonic Adventure 2 video from Tony Sonic has been deleted, but the Sonic Adventure 2 video from DS is still going to be coming around December. Also expect his Sonic Forces video to be around tomorrow.
Was? Wer fragte? I mean, scusi. Scheisse, my brain's not working. Better question, why is this here? Why should we care? And how can I blame Ceratus for this? Don't worry, I've decided I'll answer all of these questions for you. DS, aka Destroyer Shy, is a close friend of Exfredds, and around this time was working on a video on Tony Sonic's Sonic Adventure 2 video. I think it should be Nintendo Destroyer Shy's job to update his audience on his own channel, not his friend on a completely different channel, but I mean, it's only 20 seconds and it's not killing anyone, so it's not a big deal. I do think, however, this update could have used some clarification as to who Destroyer Shy was and why you felt the need to update the audience on how his video on Tony Sonic was going. I don't know, better question, have you seen One Piece? I don't think he's seen One Piece, and there seems to be a correlation between One Piece non-believers and things that I think are wrong with this world, of which is the first 18 seconds of this video. Therefore, I found another reason to be mad at Saradust, because theoretically, it's very possible he had something to do with this video. Nailed it.
3. The audio for the everything wrong. The audio for this everything wrong with video will be slightly delayed. If anyone is wondering why, if anyone is wondering why the audio is delayed,
I'm not entirely certain if you scripted this entire video, but this segment sure doesn't give me that impression based on the amount of stammers, stutters, and moments where you probably should have just done a retake for convenience sake. It's just a little sloppy in my opinion. I understand not being able to control a stutter to be fair, but nonetheless.
3. The audio for the everything wrong. The audio for this everything wrong with video will be slightly delayed. If anyone is wondering why, if anyone is wondering why the audio is delayed, I couldn't tell you. The audio just got delayed. For some stupid reason.
Now you wouldn't think it'd be that bad, but as the video goes on, you'll start to realize that it's not delayed by a couple milliseconds or just a singular second, but often several. So this results in the video and audio being very out of sync to a degree. I'm not sure how you saw it as acceptable. I mean, look, I understand not being super serious about the production of your videos. I'm willing to accept shite production more often than not, but as we'll see, it's so bad it honestly feels a little ridiculous. I kind of feel you probably should have re-edited the video entirely to fix it or something. I don't know how you put this video together, but you know, putting your first foot forward instead of deciding to just go, F it, it's fine, is a good place to start. Anyways, we'll be skipping the next 3 minutes because Exfredds makes some fine, albeit oddly worded points, often lacking elaboration. Though I guess it's not the biggest deal. Really, my biggest issue was the sound quality since it's not like, well, listen to this.
Yeah! This is happening! Oh no, not the loud music again.
I really don't know why the video sounds like this, but I think this is on the list of things you want to avoid when producing a video.
I'm about to bomb this whole motherfucking plane.
Chari sins the same thing twice, cliche.
You technically do it too. Even then, almost everything wrong with YouTuber does the same thing with a few exceptions. You even do the same thing throughout the course of your channel. I'll just add 10 sins and move on.
Wait, you have a sin counter? Where? You know, this everything wrong with video seems to lack a lot of everything wrong with iconography, like the subtitles, the sin counter, the dings, or at least anything that can act as its equivalent. And no, I'm not counting deafening silence as an equivalent because it just reminds me of how depressing this video is from a production standpoint. Also, you start this in by calling out how Tony Sonic does the same thing and then you proceed to call him out for it again in the same sin. Like, we heard you the first time, Exfredds. Finally, even if other CinemaSins parodies sins the same thing twice, that wouldn't take away Tony Sonic's annoyance at Chari doing it.
Yes, and no.
Eggman would never know about the last part until it happened.
You see, it was clearly a joke that the series was going for.
I don't suppose you've ever heard of a thing called sentence structure, because I'm getting this impression it's missing in this salad of words thrown together. It's a serious issue because the implications of what you might have wanted to say with this sin is almost entirely lost on me. God knows what a number of the audience might think. Let me analyze the crux of this sin. This is clearly a joke the series was going for. This statement being in regard to the deeper voice Tony Sonic retorting B-Man and pointing out how Eggman wouldn't know that Chaos would end up betraying him until it happened. So, a couple of questions must be raised. Is the series in question Sonic the Hedgehog? Because if that's the case, then Eggman not knowing he'd get betrayed in this game is not a joke. Now, in the long term, given this happens to him in Sonic 06 Unleashed and technically Adventure 2, I could argue it's a running gag of sorts, but in the context of SA1, no. And even if the point you were trying to make was that the series makes a joke out of this occurrence over the course of the series, what does that mean in the long term against Tony Sonic's point? Because Tony Sonic is trying to say Eggman wouldn't know about this, thus pointing out how ultimately Chaos wouldn't work for him in the end is, well, sin-worthy. Of course, deep-voiced Tony Sonic ultimately misunderstands the intentions of the sin, which is purely a joke at the expense of Eggman, not arguing or joking that he should have been aware of Chaos's impending betrayal. Now, given how clearly B-Man is making a joke here, I do think it's possible that Exfredds meant that B-Man was making a joke here, and that's what the series refers to. Except that'd be real fucking weird. A series refers to a number of things, events, or people of a similar kind or related nature coming one after another. Or alternatively, can be used to refer to something like a set of video games or movies. B-Man isn't any of those. As far as I'm aware, he's a human, and so unless you have some sort of expose on why he's secretly a collection of video games, then I don't know why the phrase "the series" was used to describe him. Ultimately, though, the point I really want to get across is just that the wording choice is so poor here, I'm not entirely certain what you wanted to get across with this statement. I really need to emphasize how important good, or at least decent, grammar is. And while I don't like to shove it down a subject's throat if they have this issue out of concern that perhaps they aren't versed in the English language, when it interferes in giving out the point they want to give, I can't help but comment on it.
Oh, for kids! You're aware Casino Night Zone exists in Sonic 2, right?
Why is a chunk of the original Sin from Chari's video missing? Look, I get having a little bit of delay, but having chunks of the video that serves to contextualize the sins you'll be sinning missing only serves to confuse the audience further. I hate to do this, but it looks like I've got to re-edit the video.
Gambling, you know, for kids.
You're aware Casino Night Zone exists in Sonic 2, right? You know, the level based entirely off a casino?
Does it really negate the point? Sure, it's done before, but Sonic Adventure 1 was made for more of a kid-related game than the games in the Genesis.
Grammar called, it misses you. We have yet another instance of seriously mind-boggling wording choices. Let me repeat what was said here. But Sonic Adventure 1 was made for a more kid-related game than the games on the Genesis. The implications of this statement would make one assume that Sonic Adventure 1 was made for a kid-related game. I don't even know what that means, but my best assumption is that Sonic Adventure 1 was a game produced for a kid somehow related to a game. So like, a part human, part video game hybrid. Of course, that doesn't make any sense because those don't exist. Actually, let me rephrase that. I hope those don't exist. Less paperwork for me. Look, that single word completely derails this entire sentence, and instead of letting the sentence speak for itself and getting across your point, I have to think about the implications of everything surrounding the sin and use that to imagine what you were actually going for, which means I may not be getting the most accurate idea of what you wanted to say with this sin. The best I can muster is that you really wanted to say, but Sonic Adventure 1 was made for a much kiddier audience than the previous Sonic games that came out on the Genesis. If that is what you were trying to say, congratulations on being incorrect. Well, maybe not entirely incorrect, but firstly, there's no real source for that claim, and from a distance, I could honestly make the argument that they were going for the exact same audience, just in different eras, the early 90s and late 90s respectively. But diving deeper into Sonic Adventure 1 does reveal some darker storytelling elements that the Genesis games didn't have in some ways, making it seem like they were also trying to attract or at least get the attention of a slightly older demographic. This is the game that has the entire elimination of a city by a god of destruction, the implied genocide of the Echidnas, and you know, the depressing shit that was happening in Gamma's story. Well, so if that's what you were trying to go for with this point, well, you'd be wrong, unfortunately, but again, I can't be certain given I'm only going off of assumption as to what you actually meant. For real, careful wording is very, very important.
I'm about to bomb this whole motherfucking plane.
That's a Chaos Emerald. No shit, Knuckles.
Sins characters for pointing out the obvious, yet does the same thing with no shame.
What is literally a joke? Here are 30 sins, and now we can move on.
Kinda keep forgetting there's supposed to be sins, with the invisible sin counter. Moving on to the actual point, Okay, but even if it's a joke, saying that, well, it's a joke, doesn't really take away from that sin. Like, just because Chari isn't serious when he points out things that are obvious, doesn't make him sitting characters for characterization any less of a problem to Tony Sonic. Especially since Chari still makes it a point to sit in the game for that.
Knuckles, don't tell me Eggman tricked you again!
Me? What about you? What about him what? Eggman didn't trick him.
Sonic points that out. On a side note, many Sonic fans claim that Knuckles is an idiot in the modern games, yet completely ignore moments like these where he's arguably dumber.
Doesn't mean it's not a problem with the game for rushing a line.
Right, yeah, rushing the line. That was totally the problem people have with this scene, as expressed by everyone else in this chain. Right, everybody? Right? Yeah, rushing the line. Yeah, anyways, enough of the sarcasm. In the same way, this interjection really doesn't change the fact that Chari smells like cheese, as was the main problem everyone had with this segment. Right, everyone? Chari smells like cheese, right? Yeah, everyone? Okay, enough of the sarcasm. But for real though, the fuck does this mean in the grand scheme of things? Rushing the line would imply the problem is something along the lines of somebody in the game rushing their dialogue, but this isn't the problem here. What everyone is discussing is Knuckles trying to tell Sonic that he was also tricked, even though Sonic wasn't. Deeper voice Tony Sonic is calling attention to the fact that despite common criticism directed at Knuckles being written as dumb these days, people seemingly ignore moments where he was dumb in the past too, as is the case here. Rushing the line isn't even relevant to this discussion. Why is it being brought up? Even if that had been a subject here, Tony Sonic is allowed to offhandedly bring up how Sonic fans seemingly miss moments like this where Knuckles was dumb in the past, as it wasn't trying to debunk a statement by Chari, but add 2 cents to an outside discussion. Now, I don't think it's entirely correct because I feel over the course of the 2010s, Knuckles being outwardly dumb was more prominent than it had ever been previously been, but nonetheless, Exfredds doesn't do much to argue it other than bring something unrelated into the discussion. Now, I did consider the possibility that perhaps this line was meant to go in the section where Chari sends Knuckles' voice actor and his incredibly phoned-in line of, "Ah, Eggman."
Yes, Mr. McGarn, could you please give us this line? It goes, "Ah, Eggman! We really need you to give it your all for this one." At the game ships tomorrow anyway.
That's cringy.
But looking back on that segment, I hardly get the impression this line was meant to go there. Maybe Exfredds was under the assumption the discussion of this point still surrounded that sin, but it didn't. Chari and Tony Sonic both moved on to other sins after, so bleh, this point sucks.
Did that sound effect really need to be used twice?
Yes, because Sonic's fall was longer than the sound effect.
It's still annoying to most people.
Nice argument, Senator. Why don't you back it up with a source?
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
Besides, based on B-Man's point, the problem he had was ultimately that it just seemed unnecessary to have the sound effect play twice, which Tony Sonic countered by pointing out the fall being longer than the sound. It being annoying to most people, whether or not that is true, doesn't magically make that sin invalid. Try again.
Theoretically, couldn't Sonic ride the beam up to the egg carrier too? Why doesn't he just do that?
Because it closes shortly after Zero is all the way up there. So if he did try it, he'd just fall back down.
You defend this game? He could have at least tried.
So I've made it a point to re-edit all of the interjections because I really fucking hate myself, but I really need to point out an issue with this segment of the original video because, very confusingly, he starts it like this.
To the egg carrier too? Why doesn't he just do that?
Because it closes shortly after Zero is all the way up there.
Exfredds' video barely shows even a third of the sin from Chari's video, something that would very much be confusing for the audience. When sloppy production actively hurts the sins you'll be making, that's when I feel you need to go out of your way to correct mistakes like that. You can't ignore stuff like this. Also, more of a nitpick this time, but let's take note of the little bit of the previous point that plays ever so briefly for some reason. Now, to add an actual argument here, yeah, Sonic could have at least tried, but he still would have ended up with the result that Tony Sonic imagined, making his efforts entirely pointless, something Sonic probably knows. So, yeah, why should Sonic waste his time trying to hitch a ride on a beam that won't be there by the time he's even somewhat close to the airship?
Were they really too lazy to create a new environment for this flashback? This leads me to believe that Sonic and Tails met in the Mystic Ruin.
You've never been in a forest before, have you? Still kinda lazy to reuse an area from the actual game. Think about it.
Okay, look, I know this argument that it's lazy was started by B-Man and Chari's video, but I do want to put out there that Sonic Team reusing this map for this single cutscene isn't something I'd call lazy, especially when you remember this development team is creating a video game with 6 different characters, 11 levels spread across those characters, several huge hub areas, among many other things that the development team was working on. When Sonic Adventure 1 was released in Japan in December 98, it was released in a very glitchy state because according to Takashi Iizuka, the game was made on a very tight schedule, and they couldn't go back to fix many of the glitches before the release window. I feel this isn't a case of laziness on the end of Sonic Team, but just them not seeing the necessity of creating an entire new area for one cutscene, especially when on such a tight schedule as is. Someone might raise the question, okay, so why not add it during Sonic Adventure 1's worldwide release in 1999? Well, Sonic Team probably had to spend that time localizing the game and fixing bugs, and if anyone wants to ask about the DX release for GameCube in 03, most of the development time would have likely been spent optimizing the game for GameCube as well as updating the graphics, so adding a new background to this one not very long scene would most certainly not be a priority. I also feel DX in general wouldn't have had the manpower to waste time on such small things, since Sonic Team was also developing Sonic Heroes around the time, which, similarly to Adventure in 98, was on an incredibly tight schedule which could have pulled manpower towards Heroes and away from Adventure DX. Would explain why these days DX is seen as such a botched port. Really, the point I want to get across here is that I don't agree with how Exfredds or B-Man throw around the word lazy in this discourse because I think it undermines what the staff was up to during the development team of Adventure.
The servers are the 7 Chaos. Chaos is power, power enriched by the heart. The controller is the one that unifies the chaos. But the number 7 is the same as the number of emeralds there are. Emeralds? Forgive me, but I don't think we've ever met before.
So why are you telling him all that?
Because she's nice. Charison's characterization cliche.
She still needs to be more smart about things.
That may be the case, but this doesn't take away from the fact that you're ignoring the existence of Yamato One Piece, who is by far the most attractive character in the series. I'd say Carrot, but I didn't realize until recently she's actually 15, which, Oda, why? Genuinely, I'm actually really sad about that. I was like the biggest Carrot simp, and now I'm like, I guess not. Now, you may be asking me what Yamato has to do with this discussion, and my answer is simple. I have no idea. I guess I just somehow misinterpreted Exfred's statements about Tikal not being smart and criticized it for something his point wasn't. I think you all see what I'm trying to say here, because this is like the 3rd time it's happened. I don't know how, but Exfredds once again misunderstands. Oh, I'm actually kind of mean. Hold up. Let me scale that back. I think I'm being a little mean. Hold on. I'm trying to be nice. This is unnecessary. I think you all see what I'm trying to say here, because this is like the 3rd time it's happened. Exfredds kind of misunderstands the intentions of the original Sin on the end of Tony, Sonic, and Chari 5, and it's getting a little weird. See, Chari has no idea why Tikal would exposit all of this plot-important information to Tails, even though she doesn't know him. Tony Sonic's retort is that, oh, well, she's nice, that's why. Exfred's counter is that, well, she needs to be more smart about these kinds of things, even though the problem was never that this wasn't a smart move on her end. The implications of Chari's sin was simply that it was weird. My brain is having a hard time figuring out where this interpretation came from. So, yeah, I'm just gonna turn around.
Oh, this isn't what you're after.
You're right.
That's okay, though. I can use you as a guinea pig to test it.
Wait, you heard what he said, right? You realize he's up to no good, right?
A simple test is not enough to immediately assume something bad.
It's still annoying that Knuckles even considered to trust Eggman after the first time in Sonic 3.
To be completely fair in this interjection, because I assume you all know where I'm about to go with this one, that is true. It very much can be annoying to see Knuckles believe Eggman despite what happened in Sonic 3K. That being said, this isn't relevant to the actual discussion here, which is about how Chari thinks Knuckles should have realized Eggman was up to no good, based on how he expressed that he could use Knuckles as a guinea pig. Tony Sonic, on the other hand, thinks that this isn't enough to give it away. What you're saying about it still being annoying is just not the point. Maybe you could try to somehow make it relevant, but as far as you use the point here, you literally just throw it out here, which seems to be a very recurring issue.
I get that scene was a little drawn out, but Knuckles was thinking it over very thoroughly. He needed the time.
Tony defends the game too much, cliche.
This isn't a sin that really speaks for itself, so you can't just say, wow, you defend the game too hard, Tony Sonic, especially if you don't give a reason why it's a problem in this case.
I'm about to bomb this whole motherfucking plane.
Quietly hand over the bird.
No, never!
Why not?
Did a robot seriously just ask why not? Don't question it, just blow her up!
While she's holding the bird he's after? Yeah, that's smart. Besides, Gamma had already started changing sides after witnessing the other E-Series robots die and Beta being ruthlessly configured.
It's still stupid to say why not.
How? Again, this isn't a sin that speaks for itself. It's basically just you saying, you're wrong, Tony Sonic, and that's it. For once, I think Tony Sonic does make a decent point, because after all he's gone through, Gamma just seems curious as to why Amy would go out of her way to protect this random bird. It makes more sense than you seem to think here, unless you have some unspoken reason that you tragically decided not to express.
I'm about to bomb this whole motherfucking plane.
Oh, you sure surprised me by having a Chaos Emerald with you.
Yeah, I mean, did you see how big it was?
That's what she said.
Chari sends the same thing twice, cliche. Also, never bring that guy back to collab with you.
Not only Chari, but also Brandrick. Seriously, I would add multiple sins, but that's for a couple minutes.
Huh? What type of counter sin is that? I get the impression you messed up and only played a short bit of it, and if that's the case, that's a bit sloppy. You can't just release a video with points unfinished. Not only is that sloppy, but it's confusing for audience members who may not understand what you're trying to get at with your point.
I'm about to bomb this whole motherfucking plane.
Still better than most songs on the radios these days.
Oh, sick burn, bro.
Word of advice, don't laugh at your own jokes. It only makes it obvious how bad they are.
It's considered by most people that the child singing is not good.
Okay, firstly, according to who exactly? Secondly, why does this matter exactly? Because Tony Sonic's point is that Chari and B-Man are laughing at their own jokes, and that apparently makes it obvious how bad they are. Even if what you're saying about the Chow singing is considered bad by most people, that wouldn't take away from what Tony Sonic is saying. That's like if I say, I like bread, and you come up to me saying, well, I like bungee gumming. Like, that's cool, but who asked?
Now my father is trying to take their sacred home. It seems his heart is closed off to us all. My true hope is that someday we'll understand each other.
Again, why show this to Gamma? It's not like it matters, he's a goddamn robot!
He's also connected to the Flicky that had one of the emeralds, and he was the only robot to capture Froggy who had both an emerald and a piece of chaos.
That shouldn't automatically make Gamma important to call.
Elaboration called, it misses you. Honestly, I feel you're onto something here with this point because you are correct. Despite Tony Sonic's clarification, that shouldn't inherently make him important to Tikal because this doesn't really mean much to Gamma, it only makes sense for the player, who by this time has probably heard her detail several speeches to them. However, this point only feels like you saying, well, you're wrong about that, Tony Sonic, and then calling it a day. You gotta elaborate on a point like this or else there's no argument, just you saying, nah, and that's it, because this isn't exactly a point that speaks for itself.
I'm about to bomb this whole motherfucking plane.
After that explosion, yeah, no, you should be dead.
No, he shouldn't. I will not be taking any arguments right now. Or ever.
He is not an how do I say this? Anthropomorphic animal like the others, so this sin is null.
Firstly, my ears. Heaven forbid don't speak too closely to your mic or the audio will distort like that, and it's not good to listen to. On to the point, question, since when was it the fact that they were anthropomorphic that allowed Sonic characters to be impervious to shit like that? As far as I'm aware, never. I think expressing that Eggman is a mere human, so Chari pointing out that he should have died from this is a fair sin ultimately, but anchoring it with this assumption that since he's not anthropomorphic, he obviously should have lived here is kinda weird. So anyways, that's just about everything I think is worth covering, and the video ends pretty soon after this, so I'm just gonna move on to my final thoughts. Okay, look, at the end of the day, when it comes to this video, I'm not particularly interested in discussing the problems the SEC have had with many people who have consistently gone and made videos on Tony Sonic, but ultimately I wanted to briefly look at these videos in a vacuum, and I chose Exfredds in particular since I was made aware that I was the inspiration for this video, no thanks to him adding me in the description. My biggest issues come down to production and the execution of this video. The production is messy to a degree where it's almost borderline unwatchable with how much of Chari and or Tony Sonic's video was accidentally cut out. The audio is just piss poor and needs fixing. I don't know how much free space you have in your phone, but if you have enough to download YouTube videos on it, I'd recommend doing that instead of what you did in this video, which seems to be you playing the recording of the video back on your phone through your speakers. I don't know what your history with the English language is, and maybe I don't have the right to say word your shit better as somebody who IRL gets praised for my reading and writing scores being some of the best in the state. Not to brag. No, seriously, I live in Arkansas, the bar is like on the floor down here, but I will at least put a larger emphasis on figuring out the best way to word your points in a way that possibly won't confuse the eye. Maybe getting other people to look into your scripts or videos and see what they think, for an example. Sin-wise, this video is a mixed bag. Some of the points are acceptable. The conspiracy theorist in me feels that's partially because of my video on Tony Sonic, but hey, that's ultimately just me theorizing. But a lot of these sins are just not good. Focus on getting a better understanding of what the discussion is about, because the several instances of you making a statement like, well, that's still annoying, in situations where that wouldn't take away Tony Sonic's point, showcase the serious lack of understanding of said discussion. Make sure to elaborate on certain points that may need explaining for an audience member to understand why you're sinning it. To be honest though, I'm not even certain of the anti-Tony Sonic community's current doing, simply because I've been so preoccupied with my job that I haven't paid it attention, but in case you ever want to do an everything wrong with video, really any response video in the future, please keep these in mind. But all things said and done, I wish you a good day, Exfredds, and I hope the future treats you well. And to my audience, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I pray that Walmart lets me have hobbies again sooner or later. Good night.
Wait, what the? Where did everything go?